Everybody, good afternoon. It is Wednesday, 14th of April 2019, and I've been doing research on the supposed alleged 4 oil tankers sabotaged in the UAE. 2 of the tankers supposedly owned by Saudi Arabia, one a Norwegian flagged tanker, allegedly. All of the reports that I saw show no pictures of any damage. CBS Morning or whatever reported that one of the tankers had an explosion on board. No pictures, no information, no actual evidence of sabotage. And it sounds like a false flag. And what does that sabotage mean besides an explosion? What does that even mean? Could it have been an accident? It is kind of a weird coincidence that 4 tankers supposedly on the same day would be sabotaged. What does that even mean, sabotage? Did 4 employees on 4 different boats take a whiz on the floor, on the ship's deck, and somebody slipped on the floor, and that's sabotaged? False flag. False flag. Sounds like a real false flag. Let's take it a step further. Obviously, there's only one country, maybe 2 countries in the Middle East that would maybe benefit from a war in Iran, and that would be Saudi Arabia and Israel. Primarily Israel, because they have this hysterical fear of Iran doing something bad to them. But to be honest, to be fair, it was the Israelis that got us to invade Iraq, thus elevating Iran as the hegemonic power in the Middle East. So there's that. There's that. The cunning of reason. Who said that? Whoever said that. You know, you do something to try to get outcome A, but actually outcome B happens, the exact opposite of what you intended, because what you're doing is bad, okay? So the next step to think about is, what are U.S. vital interests in the Persian Gulf, in the Middle East, when we, the United States, is pretty much energy independent. Now, the last time I checked, which is about a year ago, the United States did import about 1 million barrels of oil from Saudi Arabia a day. I don't know why. We don't need the oil, but I think some of the refineries are set up to use the crude oil that comes from Saudi Arabia, right? They're configured for a particular type of crude oil. That may be why. And Saudi oil is pretty, I don't know if it's as refined, like sweet crude they call it, as you get in Texas. But certainly it's better quality than what comes from Venezuela, which is known as a heavy crude, which requires more processing to turn it into fuels. But there's absolutely no strategic vital interest of the United States regarding oil in the Middle East. We have plenty of oil and natural gas. We, in fact, are exporting oil, natural gas, and refined fuels right now from the United States. President Trump just gave a speech yesterday where he was talking with, he was in Louisiana at a natural gas exporter terminal, where he's talking about how we're doing so well exporting natural gas, which of course is a byproduct to the shale revolution, which not only is producing oil from shale formations in the United States, but also giving off just billions of cubic meters of natural gas, which we cannot use, so we're exporting them, which is a great thing for the United States. And, you know, this has been going on for a long time. LNG terminals, or I think a company called LNG, or Cheniere Natural Gas, originally had built these terminals in Louisiana to import natural gas because we thought there would be a shortage. But once the shale revolution kicked off, we realized that we don't need to import, to export. And this company did a really good job crafting 20-year contracts, basically sold out. 20-year contracts to export natural gas to places like South Korea, India, and now Poland and one of the Baltic states, Estonia maybe, or Latvia, or Lithuania, one of those. So basically for the next 20 years, that whatever they produce is going to be exported, it's going to be sold, which is a good thing. We have no natural strategic interests in that area. The people who should be concerned about a oil interruption is Europe. Europe is getting their oil from the Persian Gulf. Europe is getting most of their oil from the Persian Gulf. Most of the natural gas is coming from Russia. I think it's like, what, 40%? This is probably the single largest source of natural gas to Europe comes from Russia. And the rest, crude oil is coming from the Middle East, from the Persian Gulf. Europe should be concerned about the Persian Gulf. They don't seem to be very concerned about the Persian Gulf. They don't seem to be very worried about Iran. It's only those two countries, Saudi Arabia, who is Sunni Islam, versus the Shia Islam dominated or headquartered in Iran, right? That's what this is all about. And for some reason, Saudi Arabia is allied with Israel. It's kind of a strange sort of thing where publicly Saudi Arabia is anti-Israel, but publicly, at least not recently, they haven't said anything negative towards Israel, but historically they've said negative things against Israel. But in the back rooms, I guess they're making deals with Israel. And there's this sort of alliance between Israel and Saudi Arabia that has nothing to do with us. So what I'm trying to say is they've been pushing for war with Iran since 1979. Now, back in 79, as you know, the Shah was toppled by the Ayatollah Khomeini, partly because of the repression of the Shah of Iran, and again, cunning of reason, right? We put the Shah in power, toppling the previous elected government because they nationalized the oil companies in Iran, and that was bad for, I guess, the British American petroleum companies. So they toppled him. Mossadegh, I guess Mossadegh was his name. They toppled him. CIA toppled him in a coup, put in the Shah of Iran, and what 20 years later, the Ayatollah kicks in, right? And now it's a Islamic State. Now, you know, the Iranians that I've met, they Iranian Canadian or Iranian American, they're all Shia, and they've all been, you know, relatively nice. I would have to say that, yeah, very nice people. A little bit weird, right? I mean, that's my opinion. Just a little bit, you know, strange. One guy who, you know, he says he's American, you know, the first thing out of his mouth when we talked about this a few years back, many years back actually, was that he believes that all countries have the right to follow whatever policies that are for that nation, right? So he's basically giving an excuse for Iran to build a bomb, right? That they have a right to pursue whatever national foreign policy or national policies that they want. Yeah, you can say, okay, fine, but did they sign a non-proliferation agreement? That kind of stuff. It's going to be a huge foobar situation if we attack Iran. There's no reason for it. I'm totally against it. Hashtag no more wars for Israel. While it is true, hashtag Islam sucks balls, it's like a hornet's nest. If you leave them alone, they tend to leave you alone. And there's no reason why we need to kick that hornet's nest. I say we just leave them alone. And Israel needs to make peace with their neighbors. I don't understand why Trump is the only guy that I'm aware of, only country that has recognized the Golan Heights as Israeli owned now, or basically recognizing Israeli control over the Golan Heights. The whole Middle East peace process was always called Land for Peace. Israel made peace with Egypt by giving back the Sinai Peninsula, which they were able to get during one of the wars, whatever. But they gave it back and made peace with Egypt, and it's been a pretty solid peace. The same thing in 2010, I know I say this again, but for those that are new, in 2010 there were secret talks between Syria and Israel about land for peace. Give back the Golan Heights. Syria would make peace with Israel. They'd become trading partners, neighbors, whatever. That was the deal. That was in 2010, but by 2011, Israeli had reneged on the deal. And then in 2015, they discovered natural gas and oil in the Golan Heights. So now they don't want to give it back. So that's a problem. And that may be, obviously one of the reasons why they were in favor of attacking Syria, right? Destabilize Syria, topple it, keep the Golan Heights, and even maybe expand further. It's a bad thing. Now, like I said, this has been on for 20 years or so. Netanyahu was saying Iran would have a bomb in 6 months, and that was 20 years ago. I can think it was in 1988 he said that. We back on? Yeah, I guess we're back on. I don't know if you heard me. Look, if Iran really wanted to have a bomb, I think they would have a bomb by now. It may very well be that they don't really want a bomb. I mean, I think they probably would like to have a bomb just to be able to say, hey, we have a bomb, leave us alone. But there's no reason to attack Iran. And if you have any contact with your senators or Congress people, just give them a call. There's a switchboard number, it's a 212 area code number. You can Google it, find it. Call up your local congressman and your senators and say, look, we're opposed to any kind of war with Iran. I'm not going to support it. Definitely not going to send my kids. I'm definitely not going to volunteer anybody in my family or encourage anybody in my family to fight Iran. No more wars for Israel. Soldier Rock and Roll reporting to you live and unscripted. Remember to always make it happen for the captain.